Vahavta lreiacha komocha is generally perceived as a mitzvah to love your fellow Jew, your neighbor. Yet in this year we're going to be analyzing exactly what vahavta lreiacha komocha means. So let's start off by reading the pasuk. It's found in lreiacha, parak yud pasuk yud. Lo sikam v'lo tikor et bnei amecha vahavta lreiacha komocha. Do not bear a grudge, and then vahavta lreiacha komocha. In general, we have a rule that when there's a lo saseh followed by an aseh in a pasuk, the aseh is coming to do the opposite of the lo saseh. In other words, if you're doing something bad, then the lo saseh is going to be telling you to do something bad, then not to do something bad, then the aseh is going to be coming to tell you to do something good. This is unusual because in this pasuk, we're saying, do not bear a grudge, and then vahavta lreiacha komocha. I don't know about you, but if I were writing my Torah, I would have put vahavta lreiacha komocha after the pasuk of lo tisna es achicha bilvavecha, that you shouldn't hate another friend. Another question on this strange lashon of vahavta lreiacha komocha is that how can you really love your fellow Jew? Does this mean that you have to love everybody? You know, like a random neighbor, somebody you barely know. Does that mean that you really have to love them also? And then the third question on vahavta lreiacha komocha is that how is one really supposed to love their neighbor and their friend like themselves? It's very hard because a person naturally feels a need to protect and love themselves, yet for a neighbor it might not be so natural and it'll be extremely difficult, so this is very strange. We're going to see how Chazal analyze the pasuk of vahavta lreiacha komocha by starting off by looking at the Gemara on the Mishnah on Mem Dalet on Beis, and then the Gemara on Mem Hey on Aleph.
The Mishnah on Mem Dalet on Beis on the bottom. The person who's receiving skila is 4 amos from the Beis HaSkila. They're going to remove his clothing. They're going to cover him in front. And the woman is going to be covered both in front and in back. And the Chachamim say that only the man is going to be stoned unclothed, but the woman who's receiving skila is not going to be unclothed. In other words, she's going to have clothes on. We're going to skip down a little in the Gemara to my time Ahu D'Rabbanan. My time Ahu D'Rabbanan. Why do the Rabbanan say that the man should be stoned unclothed, but the woman should not be stoned unclothed? In other words, the woman should have clothing. Amar Kra, because the pasuk says Viragmu Oso, that they shall stone him, and this seems to be only the man. My Oso, what are we saying when we say specifically him? Ilema Oso v'lo Osa. Maybe you're going to say that it means Oso, just him, and not her. But clearly it does not mean that only a man is going to receive skila, because we have another pasuk that includes both man and woman. Elamai oso, rather, what are we saying when we say the word oso? Osa below kisoso. We're saying that a man gets it without clothing. Ha'osa bichsosa. But she, the woman, is going to receive it, skila with clothing. But now we're going to have to explain Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, oso below kisoso, that when we say him, it means without clothing. Losna isha, then it makes no difference whether it's man or woman. Oso is going to include both. We're now going to further discuss the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan. Are we saying here that the Rabbanan are chayesh v'herhurim, and Rabbi Yehuda lo chayesh v'herhura, and Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about herhurim? But don't we have a Mishnah that says the exact opposite? Because we have a Mishnah when talking about Sotah, Kohen oches bigvadeha, the Kohen is going to grab onto her clothes, im nikru v'im nipru, and it doesn't matter. Ad shemigla et liba, until he uncovers her chest.
V'soser asara, and he unbraids her hair in order to make it ugly.
Rabbi Yehuda says, im haya libana lo haya miglehu, that if we were to be concerned about her hurim with her specific body, then we would not allow her to be completely revealed. V'im haya sa'ara naya lo haya soro. But and also if her hair is nice and comely, then we would not allow it to also be revealed and undone. So now we're saying. So now we have opposite views of Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim in our Gemara and in that Mishnah there in Sosa. Amar Rabba said, Hasam Hainu Tama. When we're talking about Sota, there is a reason that that Rabbi Yehuda does not allow her to be completely exposed. Shema Teitze mi Beis Din Zaka, because maybe she will come out and be found innocent. V'Yisruba Pirchei Kahuna, and then young Kohanim who saw her are gonna try to chase her.
Hachaha Miktala.
In our case in the Gemara, we're not concerned that the Kohanim are going to think about her and try to get her afterwards, because she's going to be killed. And if she's killed, then they're not going to want her. And now the Gemara is going to continue v'chi tema. And if you want to say that this isn't true, I say this seeing her being stoned unclothed is going to cause the Kohanim to want to be with other women. Amar Rabba, Rabba says, Gemire ein yetzer hara sholet ela b'mi she'enav roa. That we saying that the yetzer hara is only with this one specific woman, because once you see her, you're only going to want specifically her. Amar Rabba, rather Rabba says, Rabbi Yehuda ad Rabbi Yehuda lo kasha, that the two things Rabbi Yehuda said are not contradicting to Kedushanin, as we just explained. Rabbanan ad Rabbanan nami lo kasha, and the two things of the Chachamim are, let's say, because we have a pasuk that says, V'nasru kol anashim v'lo ta'asana kezimas. And the whole purpose of doing this, of embarrassing her, is so that other women will not want to do the same thing she did, because they don't want to be embarrassed like her. Hacha, but in this case, ein la yisur gadol mizeh. There's no better punishment than being killed. And so if other women see her being killed, then they too also will not want to be killed, and therefore will not do the same since she did. V'chi tema. And if you want to say levad beit tarte, why don't we just do both? Why don't we both kill her and embarrass her? Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avuha, and we give Rav Nachman said in the b'shem Rabba bar Avuha, Amar Kra, because the pasuk says vahavta lreiacha komocha. Barur lor misa yafer, and that when the pasuk says vahavta lreiacha komocha, this is talking about when you're gonna be killing this person, and therefore we want to give a nicer death. So according to this Gemara, the pasuk of vahavta lreiacha komocha is referring to giving the person a nicer and what you perceive as a better death. Our Gemara brings vahavta lreiacha komocha to talk specifically about when you're going to be giving the person a punishment. And this is unusual because this is not how I would have imagined vahavta lreiacha komocha would come about, when you're talking about giving a person skila and killing him using this punishment. Tosfos also addresses this question. Barlo means yafer. In that Tosfos. Yesh mavar she mishum lreiacha komocha lo shayach lechayim lechayach kodim. There's some Mepharshim who say that vahavta lreiacha komocha does not apply when you're alive, because chayach hakodmi. In other words, when you are alive, your life has to come before your fellow friend's life. V'yesh Mepharshim, and the second answer Tosfos brings, mishum dechtiv the lreiacha dikra, because the beginning of the pasuk of vahavta lreiacha komocha says, lo sikom v'lo sitor v'lashon nekima hi misa. It says that do not take revenge and do not bear a grudge, and the lashon of nekima, of taking revenge, is misa. Another source of vahavta lreiacha komocha is in the Gemara in Sanhedrin on Pei Dalet Amud Beis. So we're going to start right towards the bottom, and the bottom third. The first word on the line is di baya, just that 2 lines there. Di baya lehu ben mahu shikit dam la'aviv, is a son allowed to bloodlet for his father. Rav Masna Omer, or Rav Masna says vahavta lreiacha komocha. That vahavta lreiacha komocha applies here. Rashi says vahavta lreiacha komocha lo huzar yisrael milasos v'chavreim ela davar she'enu chafetz lasos la'atzmo. A person is only not allowed to do to their friend something which he wouldn't want done to himself, and the same contrapositive would apply here. So we're saying that the son would be allowed to bloodlet for his father because the son would want bloodletting to be done to him, and so he's allowed to do it to him also.
Either way, according to Tosfos, he seems to say that vahavta lreiacha komocha does not apply during life, which is what I assume everyone else here also thought.
Right? So we saw before in the Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Mem Hamid Aleph, the interesting shita of Tosfos, who says that vahavta lreiacha komocha does not apply during life, rather it only applies during death, in that when you're giving someone misa, you should give them a nicer misa. So there's a very similar approach taken by the Yad Ramah, which is very interesting. The Yad Ramah writes in his Parish on Mesechus Sanhedrin, on Daf Nun Beis and Beis, he says, "Umefarkinan Amar Krav Vahavta lreiacha komocha." Right, the pasuk says Vahavta lreiacha komocha, and how does he explain it? V'chol heicha dichsiv reiacha mashma Yisrael va'afilu rasha shenischayev misa atachayev lachzar achar zechuso liberal lo misa yafeh. That his first pshat is that whenever it says reiacha, the word reiacha means Jews, and even a rasha. So therefore, even a rasha's chayev misa, you would have to go after his zechus to give him a nicer misa. Second pshat, v'yesh lefarish v'yahavta lreiacha lashon ra'i mishebecha. The word reiacha is cute. He says ra'i mishebecha, right? All right. So Rav Yerucham Fishel Perlau, in his comments on the Sefer HaMitzvos of Rav Sadia Gaon, really analyzes this Ramah, and with it he gives us an insight a little bit to the Ramah and to Tosfos' shita that we saw before. Maybe he'll help us understand it a little bit better. So first he asks on the Ramah. Remember, the Ramah gave two answers. So on his first answer, what was the first answer of the Ramah? That the pasuk says lreiacha, and lreiacha means Jews, and even Rishoyim. So he said. So says Rav Perlau, why? What was the Ramah thinking here? So he says he saw the pasuk. The pasuk said lreiacha. So lreiacha means both tzaddikim and Rishoyim. But said the Ramah to himself, when would we have the mitzvah of vahavta lreiacha komocha by Rishoyim? Because we know that Rishoyim during life there's a mitzvah, not only right, there's a mitzvah and it's mutter to hate them, right? Like we learned before, that there's actually a mitzvah to hate Rishoyim, to people who are over Avera. So it can't be that vahavta lreiacha komocha applies to Rishoyim during lifetime. Therefore, he says that it applies to them during death when they're going to be killed. And what's the reason? What's the svara for that? Is because once they're going to be killed, they're no longer considered Rishoyim because they're getting kapara. Fine, that's what he says. Asks Rav Perlau, this doesn't seem to make any sense with the Gemara later on Daf Mem Zayin and Aleph in Sanhedrin. The Gemara says that Rava and Abaye have a machlokes. Rava says that if you get killed in Beis Din, you get kapara. Sorry, if you get killed, you get kapara versus dying a natural death. If you get killed, you get kapara. And Abaye says back to him, no. When you get killed in Beis Din, in fact, you don't get kapara. You'd only get kapara if you got killed by a malchus, right? By some malchus who was doing it not kidin. They were killing you improperly, where the halacha doesn't necessarily say that you get killed. But when Beis Din is killing you properly, you do not get kapara. So the question would seem to say, the question you could ask on this is that now according to Abaye, who says that you don't get kapara when you get killed by Beis Din, and if the Ramah says that the only reason the Rasha is getting Beis Din, the Rasha is getting, we're doing the vahavta lreiacha komocha by this Rasha, is because he no longer has the status of a Rasha because he got kapara. So would that mean that Abaye does not hold of the concept of bar lo misa yafeh? Because the whole concept of bar lo misa yafeh would only apply to someone who got kapara. So according to Abaye, who says that a Rasha doesn't get kapara, so he would never say bar lo misa yafeh, right? And even according to the opinion of Rava who says that when you're going to be killed, you do get kapara. But when do you get kapara? You get kapara once you're killed. After you're killed and you're buried and your body starts to disintegrate to the ground, that's when you get kapara. But when you're on your way to be killed, so then why should we say vahavta lreiacha komocha over there? There's a mitzvah to hate you, right? So that's his question on the first shita of the Ramah. And the second shita of the Ramah, he says, is more problematic. What was the second shita? He says, ra'i mishebecha. The word reiacha means ra'i mishebecha, the bad people amongst you. So is he trying to say that the mitzvah of vahavta lreiacha komocha is dafka to Rishoyim? But how could this be? It would seem to be crazy to say that the very same people who there's a mitzvah to hate, that's dafka who the mitzvah to love is on. So we can't accept either of these shitos. So the Rav Perlau gives an answer to try to answer up for the Ramah. He says that first of all, like Tosfos, what's the only reason that the Ramah gave this pshat that it's referring to Rishoyim? Vahavta lreiacha komocha is referring to Rishoyim when you're killing them. It's because he was forced into it. The pasuk clearly says chayecha kodmin. The drasha that we learn in the Gemara clearly says chayecha kodmin. So it's impossible to say that the mitzvah of vahavta lreiacha komocha applies during life. It would totally conflict with that din. Therefore, he was forced into saying it. It's not right. If he could say it during life, he would say it during life. Now, to address the questions, first of all, the question that we had on Rishoyim, that what do you mean there's a mitzvah to hate them? So that's not a question, because really, even when they're going to be killed, there's no more mitzvah to hate Rishoyim. Why? Because the whole purpose of hating Rishoyim is to give them tochacha, because we want them to improve. So we figure by hating them, by showing this total dislike against them, by everyone being against them, they'll say, oh, I'm clearly doing something wrong here. And then they'll improve their ways. But here where this Rasha is being sent to his death, so it doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to say that we want him to improve. He's going to be killed. And therefore, there's no more mitzvah to hate him. The mitzvah to hate him does not apply. Therefore, we do say vahavta lreiacha komocha. And also, to answer up the questions regarding kapara, of Abaye, who seems to say that since you don't get kapara by Mises Bezdin, so over here where it's a Russia, you would, right? Over here where it's a Russia, you would, it would still be a Russian. You'd not be allowed to show him vahavta lreiacha komocha because you have a mitzvah to hate him. So even if you wanted to say that there still is a mitzvah to hate him, still, what did Abaye mean when he says you don't get kapara? You don't get kapara in that if you give a karban there, your karban is still a toeva. We still say the pasuk of zevach rishayim toeva, right? But still, there is some kapara when you're going to your death, right? That first of all, how do we know this? Because we say that the person who's going to do to his death does a vidui, and he gets olam haba. So that gives you kapara. You clearly get some amount of kapara. Fine. And as for the second pshat of the Ramah, says Rav Perlau, no, you misunderstood. He's not giving a second pshat. He's giving a defense. Because just like us, the Ramah was bothered by how could you say lreiacha means rishoyim. Lreiacha, whenever we have the word lreiacha, most oftentimes reim ahuvim. It's not talking about rishoyim. Lreiacha means tzaddikim or regular people. Lreiacha doesn't necessarily mean rishoyim. So therefore, he was giving a little smach. He was giving a little thing to rely on of how we could say that it also applies to rishoyim by saying lreiacha could also mean roim shebecha. So it's not so dochek to say that the pasuk of vahavta lreiacha komocha applies to rishoyim. Fine. The question that now we're going to have so now we say that the Ramah really holds the same thing as Tosfos. The Ramah and Tosfos both hold that the vahavta lreiacha komocha dafka applies by Misa. The question is that there are many sources in Shas, three specifically that we're going to mention, but there are actually many more, which seem to say against this concept. First of all, the Gemara on Peidal and Beis that we heard before, it says Ben Mahu Shiyakiz Dam La'aviv, and it says that a son can bloodlet for his father because of vahavta lreiacha komocha. That's not death. That's during life. In addition, the Gemara in Kiddushin says that's usher for a man to be mekadesh a woman until he sees her, because maybe if he sees her for the first time once they're already married, he's gonna think she's ugly. He's totally gonna hate her. He's totally gonna despise her. And the pasuk says vahavta lreiacha komocha. And similarly, the Gemara in Nida says it's usher to have bia with your wife during the day, because you're going to see something disgusting about her, and you're going to come to think she's ugly or disgusting, and you're going to come to hate her. And the pasuk says vahavta lreiacha komocha. We clearly see that vahavta lreiacha komocha does apply during life. So for both the Ramah and Tosfos, how is he going to answer this seemingly major problem? So says Rav Perlau to answer up. Like we said before, we're forced to say for both Tosfos and the Ramah that the pasuk is talking about only Misa. Why? Because chayecha kodbin, right? So therefore, we're establishing the pasuk to mean that the pasuk that vahavta lreiacha komocha applies to rishoyim when you're killing them, you kill them in not such a harsh way. But based on this, we could say a kal v'chomer. It's a simple kal v'chomer that if it applies during death for rishayim, certainly there should be a mitzvah to love tzaddikim during their lifetimes. Maybe not a mitzvah from the Torah, but you could make a kal v'chomer logically. That, of course, there's a mitzvah to love them. And that's what those Gemaras are talking about. So that's how we would answer it up. The only question we still have is that in the Gemara on Pei Daled Amud Beis about bloodletting for your father, Rashi over there seems to say that he learns out from the Mashmos HaPasuk, not from a kal v'chomer. He learns out from the Mashmos HaPasuk this din of a son being allowed to bloodlet for his father. Therefore we say, no, maybe the pasuk itself is coming to teach us that there is a mitzvah of vahavta lreiacha komocha during life. Right? So the answer is no. Maybe you gotta change it up a little bit. The pasuk is talking about lifetime, but why can't we say that the halacha does apply to life? Why not? Because it's a milsa psiksa. That's how he terms it. He says it's a blanket statement. It says vahavta lreiacha komocha, no ifs, ands, or buts, always vahavta lreiacha komocha. And therefore, if we establish the pasuk of talking about during lifetime, so we wouldn't be able to say that because chayecha kodmin, that there is one case when we wouldn't be able to say vahavta lreiacha komocha. Maybe we'd be able to say vahavta lreiacha komocha in terms of giving, lending someone my scooter, right? Whatever. Doing nice thing to people that I would want done for myself. That we would be able to say vahavta lreiacha komocha during life. But when wouldn't we be able to say it? Where is the Gemara of chayecha kodmin? The Gemara of chayecha kodmin is talking about if you're going to die, if your life comes over your friend's life, right? If you have one pitcher of water for you or your friend, that your life comes before your friend's life. So over there, you would not be able to say vahavta lreiacha komocha because you have an explicit din that you wouldn't be able to say that chayecha kodmin, right? And therefore, since vahavta lreiacha komocha can't apply in this case, you can't say it's a milsa psiksa. You can't say the blanket statement of vahavta lreiacha komocha would apply to life because it doesn't apply to life in every single case. Therefore, we're able to establish it to death because by death, in every single case, it does apply. Vahavta lreiacha komocha would apply. And therefore, we make a kal v'chomer to life. But how do we make a kal v'chomer to life? Only in the same way as the nidon, right? In general, the rule is when you're making a kal v'chomer, you can't go further. Dayo, the rule of dayo is that you can't go any further than the original case. So, if the original din is that by death, the mitzvah of vahavta lreiacha komocha applies, how does it apply during death? It doesn't apply that during death you want to, cover him with rose petals or whatever. It's saying that you give him a lesser punishment. Obviously, he doesn't want to be killed, right? Nobody wants to be killed. It's that when he's killed, he'd prefer you don't be too mean to him. And that's how we could apply it to life. We only apply it to life in this sense that a negative, that we don't want it to be too mean. Don't be mean. But when we're applying vahavta lreiacha komocha to life, there's not necessarily a mitzvah to actively show your love for other people. Only don't be mean to them. And that fits in with the Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Lamed Aleph that says that a ger came to Hillel and he wanted to convert. And he said, I'll convert, teach me all the Torah while I'm standing on one foot. And what did Hillel say back to him famously? Man da'alach sani l'chavrik lo sabit. Whatever you hate, don't do to your friend. Right? The question over there is that why is he saying in the negative? No, the answer is because the only time it applies during life is in the negative. So that's what Rapurla is trying to answer, to explain Tosfos a little bit, and to explain the Ramah that the main source of vahavta lreiacha komocha is during death, and that's because you're forced to. That's the pasuk forced you into that. The other dinim surrounding force you to say that. But we make this kal v'chomer to life, but only in the limited circumstance of don't be mean to your friend. So you would say that Tosfos and the Ramah would both hold that this is what vahavta lreiacha komocha means. That first of all, by death, when you're killing a rasha, don't kill him too harshly. And also during life, from a kal v'chomer, don't be mean to people. And that's what they would hold that vahavta lreiacha komocha is.
I'll give you a few seconds to find the source.
And now your seconds are up. This is the pasuk of vahavta lreiacha komocha. Don't bear grudge. Don't cause grief to a Jew, and you should don't cause grief to non-Jews either. It's not okay. Vahavta lreiacha komocha, unless they're Amalek, by the way. Vahavta lreiacha komocha. You should love your friend like you love yourself. This is a little bit hard to grasp. Actually, very hard to grasp. How can the Torah command an emotion? I mean, it doesn't. I have to ace I don't think I say that's singing voice. But how can the Torah command me to love my friend? And so certain things that someone does may bother me. I'm not them, they're not me. I don't like playing backgammon, and perhaps I hate backgammon with all passion. So people play backgammon, I'm like, yeah, you know? If backgammon gets me angry, there's something wrong with me. But how can the Torah tell me to love somebody like that? And anyway, if I do love them like myself, what does that mean? Should I love Coca-Cola. And does that mean that if I want a Coca-Cola, I should go and buy Coca-Cola for everyone else? Like 14 million Coca-Colas? Because, I should love everyone like myself. I don't have that much money. And one soda is ridiculous. It's $1.50. It's so much money. 2 sodas, $3. It just adds up. Anyway, also, it can't mean that because you don't spend more than 20% on a mitzvah. More than 20% on a mitzvah, I say. So I'm not buying 14 million Cokes. I'm sorry. So what's vahavta lreiacha komocha? What's this mean to love? And what's it mean to like myself? So on anything, there are always extremes. You have the crazies and you have the laid backs. So I'm not calling Tosos. You'll see something. Okay, so by this case, Tosos is one extremist. He says that the extent to which vahavta lreiacha komocha goes is you should give bar love misa yafa. You should give a nice death. I'm sure Tosos was enjoying. I'm sure he's a nice guy. So this is kind of strange. Anyway, then there's also the Mrs. Chinuch, who explains why Rabbi Akiva calls vahavta lreiacha komocha a klal gadol Torah. And here we go. The next source, Mrs. Chinuch. We're going to read right here. Okay. V'amu b'sefri, Am Rabbi Akiva zekal gadol Torah, klomar sha'arbei mitzvos sheb'Torah tayim b'kach. Many mitzvos are dependent upon this concept of vahavta lreiacha komocha. Shoev chavero b'nafsh lo yignav mano v'lo yani isha v'lo yoneh v'mamon v'lo b'dvarim v'lo yasik v'lo yazik v'lo b'sibsad. You should love your friend like yourself. You shouldn't steal from him. You shouldn't sleep with his wife. You shouldn't pay him to lose money. You shouldn't hurt him in any way. And there are many other mitzvahs that are dependent upon vahavta lreiacha komocha. And that is why this is a klal gadol Torah. Okay. So he's right. You always deal with people, and they're always opportunity for mitzvahs. It's a good opinion. It's like what we've always been learning. You should just be nice. I mean, it doesn't really define vahavta lreiacha komocha, but it's there. And continuing. So what about the non-extreme? What about the people in the middle? So we're going to delve into the Rambam's parish on the Torah. There's snorkels because we know that the pages of the Rambam are overflowing with insightful debate Torah, and the Torah is compared to water. So we need our snorkels. Says the Rambam. Now we're gonna. Here's the next source. I'll give you like a second. Okie dokie. A second's over. The time of the flugga. This wording in Torah is an exaggeration. It's not true because it's impossible for you to love someone else. He doesn't say this, but it's maybe perhaps. Your life is first. Is no one I love more than myself. Perhaps I'm not married, but I hear that you love. I hear about wife. Wife's the only one. I heard him in a shir, great Maggid shir. Perhaps your wife, and perhaps that's why we see it by we see in Kiddushin that you have to see your wife before you get married to her, because you might not. She might be repulsed. Okay, so continuing. Maybe you see, I just forgot about that. He says it because you love no one more than yourself. The Torah is commanding you to love your friend with everything, meaning kasher, like you love yourself with everything good. So if we go down, to the Pnei Yerushalayim at the bottom of the page. On the left side of the Pnei Yerushalayim on this page. B'chol tov, kolomar, meaning to say, shekol mashu yirotzu l'atzmo, yirtza gam l'chaver. You should also want for your friend. Whatever you don't want for yourself, you should want for your friend. Okie dokie. So that's that. It's all about the emotions, he says. That's what komocha is. You should love like the emotions. It's girly stuff. So now we're going to zoom into the Pacific Ocean of Torah. The widest ocean, I believe. And if I'm mistaken, I pause now for correction so we can get our facts straight, which is the biggest ocean. Okie doke. So the Rambam comes up and everything. The joke goes about Rashi. Rashi thought I came down in a blue dress. Rashi said, why blue dress? And Rashi's wife said, knew why they commented and everything. So something should be said about Rambam. He has comments. Sefer Mitzvot, we did lots of things. We'll see. So in the Sefer, he has 3 different svarim he wrote, and he says 3 different things about this mitzvah. In the Sefer Mitzvot, as we're going to see right now, grab your, turn to this page. Let's see. You'll just find it. Okay, okie dokie. Mitzvah Reish Vav Hisha Tzivanu La'el Kesasenu Komocha Nav Ka'atzmenu V'Shetiyeh Chamalti Vahavti La'Achi Chamalti Vahavti La'Atzmi B'Manu B'Gufo Chol Mashiyeh. Okay, this is important part. This is really important. Vahavti La'Atzmi, you should love myself B'Manu with his money B'Gufo in his body Chol Mashiyeh, you should love whatever he wants, or you should, in his possession, or he wants for himself. Whatever you want, you should want for him. Whatever he doesn't want, whatever you don't want for yourself, you should want for him. So same as what I want. If I want it, I should. But you'd want it. If I have it, I should want you to have it. So that's what he's saying. It's about. It's like the girly stuff. It's like the Rambam. But if you go to the Mishnah Torah on in Hilchos Deos right here, you can't. You'll look at it now. Gimel mitzvah kol adam la'alev v'kol. It's also the Rambam. Mitzvah kol adam la'alev v'kol achad ve'achad. So you should love you have a mitzvah to love every Jew, like yourself. Right? That's what vahavta lreiacha komocha means. Therefore, I need to say, I believe you're the greatest, and Lipsky, you're so smart, and Hillel, you're also smart, and Shmuley, and Yehuda, and Yigal, and Yaakov, and Zernikian, and Roch, Tzadikim, Gamorim. You should do that. I should be worried about your finances, so I should give Zernikian his $7 to buy my Gemara and other things. So I should do this. Maybe not. I should be worried. If guys has financial problem, I should worry about it. Okay. So actions. You see, for instance, when you're saying I have to love him. It's like I have to have this. My chest is beating for you. No, I'm just joking. It's beating because I'm letting it. But I have to feel emotion for you. I have to be happy. I have to for you. I probably should be happy for you. Yes, happy. I have to be happy for you. Anyway, I have to care about you. But then he said I have to do mitzvah. So is it the girly stuff or is it the actions? What is it? So we're not even done yet with these problems, with the issues. If you go to Yochavel, Rambam has more to say on this. The mitzvahs say shadavarem lebika cholam lenachem avelem lutzi games levasakal leviat archem let's take a kol tzar lekvush let's take so on. So we see more actions. Which one is it? It's a stira. Do I have to like you, or do I have to show you by getting you Coca-Cola? Let's go back to the beginning. So we can resolve it in multiple ways. So first he says the famous maxim: treat others the way you want to be treated. So you do actions. You do these actions. You be a nice friend, but you don't have to be the guy's mother. You don't have to buy him the coke. You don't have to buy the food. He's not have to be his mother. His mother is his mother. You're not his mother. You're just his friend. So does this mean that if I don't, let's say, treat others? Okay, so treat others the way you don't treat others the way you want to be treated. So let's say I don't mind being beaten in the face. Can I beat you up now? Or let's say I don't be insulted, or I don't mind something. Can I do that to you? I'll answer this question. We'll see it soon. So there's also another possible resolution. These by contemporary authors who say that the Rambam is two tier mitzvah. It's a mitzvah chiyuv and mitzvah kemus. The chiyuv is the being the nice guy. The kemus is going with the vayim the coke. It means show him you're loving him is not connected to the feeling part. The feeling part is the chayuvas. And the active part is not violating ben adam l'chavero. You can't hate him, you can't hold a grudge, you can't keep causing grief, which is lo sonu, was in last week's parsha. I know. I follow the Torah sometimes. Anyway, there's another approach from David Bleich. Rambam is writing these were his progressive thoughts. Initially, he thought it should be whatever you would want, what you would do. You should do whatever you would want done for yourself. Then he realized that this would lead people saying, well, I don't, like what I said. Well, the question before, and then say, well, if I don't mind it, then I can do it to him. So, why should I bother doing something for him that if I don't mind, you do it to me? So Rambam then wrote in his Sefer Mitzvos, what did he, I have to go back now. He wrote, you should be concerned with what he wants. You should match up your desires with his desires. So based on this, we can answer the question, the implied question that we had on the Tziv. Well, you should know. If you don't mind, maybe he will mind, so be careful. So, but then the Rambam also realized that maybe this will be hard for people to match up because we have different thoughts and things. People, every person has something different, has a different thought. So we said in Hilchos Rava a list of things that will bring you to do things that you might not even want for yourself, and by doing them, you'll actually create this connection. So it's a way to match up your desires and build this love. So, but there's another possible approach to this. I mean, Bakshi Daron just adds, though. It's not really another approach, just adds something on. He points out, he makes a little smuchik of a remark. He just adds that in Hilchos Deos, Rambam writes, you should praise your friend because this will foster connection. Rambam is already onto the thought that we do things to show love. Have, give. It's a famous word. I don't know who said it, but I think it's Rabbi Dessler. But it's you know, that word, why is the word love come hava? Because give. When you love somebody, you give to them. Give them time, you give them gifts. So it's like the story of the rabbi who there's a certain man who didn't like, and he wanted to get rid of this dark streak, of this animosity in his heart. So he treated this man specially. He gave him special privileges. He sat him next. He sat this man right next to him at the tish. He ran over to him and he came into shul and greeted him. He did all these things. He never did his greatest tamid. And Tamidim were baffled. And I asked him, "What are you doing?" Chutzpah, what are you doing? He said, "Well, I was so afraid that I wouldn't treat him pretty, so I went on my way to do this, so I would get rid of it." Get rid of the streak in my heart. So there are others. There's another left. There's a different approach to it. No actions. The Ravan. I have no source for it. I can't show you the Ravan. I'm sorry, but I heard it by a great Magashir, vahavta komocha, that the Ravan says the opposite. It's not about actually. It's all about emotion. He explains the argument between Rabbi Akiva and Ben Zakkai, who said concerning vahavta komocha and Zesever Tolos Adam. Now Rabbi Akiva says vahavta komocha is to love someone like yourself is the call gadol b'Torah. While Ben Zakkai says that the call gadol b'Torah is really Zesever Tolos Adam. You should love someone else like you love your child. You can love our children more than us sometimes. So the whole list really is. Who do you love more? And whoever you love more, that's how you should love your friend. So we see that from his explanation that it's clearly about who you love. It's clearly about the emotions. It's all about the girly stuff, so to speak. Okay, so Targum is another pasuk, and the pasuk that we're analyzing here. He says, like the Gemara in Shabbos, he quotes the wording. He says, if you take a look at our Yonas Ben Ezio copy, what does he say? He says, if you don't want it done to yourself, you do it to your friend. This is the line the famous line that Hill taught to the one person who wanted to the ger who was taught wanted to learn the Torah standing on one foot. Hill embodied the entire Torah in this statement. Vahavta komocha. I don't know why he didn't say vahavta komocha. We'll see. And you should probably look into it more, because I'm not a genius. I'm not a genius. So the Maharsha wants to know what's up with this negative phraseology of Hillel. Why don't you say vahavta lreiacha? Why don't you say the pasuk vahavta lreiacha? Why don't you say it in the affirmative? Well, because vahavta lreiacha is not in the context of affirmative. It's by those sistor and below sikam. In fact, that I stated with these little sasays, so the mitzvah is not about doing. So the mitzvah is about not doing negative things to others. And the Smile agrees, and this is why there's a pasuk later, and not by lo sisane esachil v'alecha. And that is that. And if you look into your packets, you will see a chart onto a time.
So we started off the shir with 3 questions. Just to recap, the 3 questions were, firstly, usually in the Torah, when we have a lo saseh and it's followed by a mitzvah saseh, so the mitzvah saseh is coming to counteract that lo saseh. So in this case, you would think that vahavta lreiacha komocha should be coming to counteract the isser of, right, the mitzvah of loving someone should be coming to counteract the isser of hating someone. And so why does it come after lo sikom lo sitor, the isser of taking revenge, and the isser of bearing a grudge? The second question we had was, can the Torah really give us a mitzvah of vahavta to love? And the third question that we had was, how do we achieve komocha? So I think based on the analysis of the sugya that we just saw, and especially the shittas of the Rishonim, we could really answer these questions. Maybe you could really say, based on all that we saw, that to answer the first question, and it really answers all the questions, that what is really the mitzvah of vahavta lreiacha komocha? So maybe you could say that it's not necessarily just the fact that it's following lo sikom lo sitor, that it's only connected to lo sikom lo sitor, because if you look in the Torah, one pasuk before is the pasuk of lo sisnes achicha b'lalecha. So maybe you could say, and it was suggested to me by one of my esteemed colleagues, that Yeshua Libin, that right, that maybe it's both. Maybe you could say that it really is both. That the pasuk says lo sisnes achicha b'lalecha, which is a feeling of hatred, and then the pasuk says lo sikom lo sitor, and this feeling of hatred will cause you to do actions of hatred. And then the pasuk coming to counteract both of those says vahavta lreiacha komocha, that don't feel that have a feeling of love and do actions of love. And that's what vahavta lreiacha komocha really means. And this thing of ahava, so maybe you could say that the Rishonim that we just went through, they don't necessarily think that most of the Rishonim that we just saw don't even necessarily think that it's a true ahava. It's not necessarily an ahava that, I have to go over and love all my friends like that. But it should be a general love for Klal Yisrael, that, and if we can't do it ourselves, if we just don't have it, some people say that I just can't do it. There's that one guy and I can't stand it. So through our actions, like we just saw in the Rambam, that maybe through our actions, that if we just start acting nice to people, then eventually we'll reach this ultimate goal, the highest madriga of actual ahava. And kamocha, the same thing. That really, you're right. Like the Rambam says, haflaga, it's impossible to love your friend that much that it'll end up being that you love him like yourself. But if you work on ourselves and we strive that as a goal and we live our lives like that, then hopefully through this we will grow together as a nation, as DRS Achdus, and hopefully we'll be zocher to the rebuilding of Beis Hamikdash.